Minute late, my apologies, Chris and Joanna. About to welcome Veracross to the virtual stage, and we've got Chris Pantlin from Veracross and Joanna Avantanis from King's Baptist Grammar School. So over to you. I don't want to waste any more of your time.
Sure. Thanks, Brenton. Thanks, everybody, for coming on this morning. It's great to be able to meet with you. Let me just see if I'm able to share my screen. I'm going to run through a few quick slides to start us off. So all things being equal, you can see that there now.
We can.
Yep, okay, good. Thank you very much, Brenton. A quick rundown of the agenda today. We're just going to introduce Veracross a little bit, just for anybody that hasn't come across us just yet. Get a really quick overview in a few minutes. I'm going to throw it over to a colleague who I'll introduce in a few moments, who will take you through a really quick look at the product as well. We've had really good feedback on the session we did last year, that people really enjoyed being able to see the product with us. And then we've got Joanna along, who will be talking about their experience. So the folks you'll be hearing from today are me. My name's Chris. I'm based in Melbourne. My background is in teaching, spent 10 years working in schools. I've now been doing this kind of work for coming up to 7 years now, helping schools evaluate the platform they're on and seeing if there's a better alternative for them. I'm joined by my colleague Jade, who is also based in Melbourne with me. She's worked at independent schools and was most recently at Intelli School. She joined us 3 to 4 months ago or so now. She's a sales engineer, which essentially means product expert, and she leads our demonstrations for us. And Joanna Arvanitis is on the call as well. So she's at King's Baptist over in Adelaide, and she'll be talking about her experiences about evaluating Veracross, selecting Veracross, why they made that decision, and also how the experience has been with us so far. All right, I'll just run through a quick few slides. So I'm going to take these points, I'll sort of flash them up on the screen, and I'll just call out a couple of quick points. So hopefully this just gives you a quick overview. All this here to say that we have 700 schools in 40 countries that use our school information system product. If we look at the products we offer, in addition to the school information system product, it's actually 60 countries and 3,200 schools that use a Veracross product. We've been offering the product you're going to see today and we're going to talk about today for more than 20 years exclusively to independent schools. So we've only worked with independent K-12 schools down the journey. We have really strong retention, and that is reflected in a really strong NPS. The 99% retention, as we caught just the end of the previous conversation, change and assist is not a 5-minute job, of course. It's not necessarily always quite as hard as people think it is, and we certainly put a few things in place to support schools with that change. And obviously Joanna will be talking about that as well. But 99% retention, if you flip that, 1% have ever left. 1% of 700 is 7. So a very small number of schools that have come to Veracross have then moved away. In terms of who we are locally, if we go back sort of 2.5 years, 3 years when Veracross first came to Australia, obviously we have been building in that time. We're now up to more than 20 schools in Australia and New Zealand, 20 or so staff looking after the Veracross School Information System product, either sort of exclusively or primarily as part of their work. We have functions in Australia of sales, support, implementation, and even ancillary functions like marketing and HR. They're all in Australia now as well. So very much localized. The acquisition of Digistorm and Veracross have been completely blended. So we've just the one Veracross team in Australia now. Just run through a few key things about our offering. So Veracross, a really important thing that we love to talk about is the fact that we are a single record system. We know that there's some other systems out there that are not. And what that can mean is if somebody in your school is both a teacher and a parent, they exist twice in the database. For us, each person is a person and they only exist once. All of the different areas of functionality that you might be covering off in the school there can be managed with the Veracross School Information System. So we have a solution for every department that includes native finance. So finance is native within our system. Native admissions. We do admissions natively. You don't need a third-party product for that. Native alumni management and fundraising and donation management as well. Again, you don't need a third-party product for that. With the broader Veracross 360 suite, we have a bespoke student wellbeing offering, which is ePraise. We have the Digistorm products like a Digistorm website and the mobile app there as well. For anything else that you might want to connect to, we have an open and publicly available API. and we integrate with a range of different providers. I'm sure everybody on the call is using at least one of these in their school in one shape or form, obviously with Google and Microsoft, certainly. Maybe let's say at least two. But we integrate with all of these here as well. If you want to check out our API docs, just Google it. They're publicly available there for you to be able to validate what we offer there. And we give a huge amount of transparency as part of the evaluation process, which is something we'd love to chat to you about if we got to meet for a demo as a follow-up to this, or a bit of a meeting as a follow-up to this. Veracross has always been in the cloud. We have never had an on-premise customer. We know that a lot of the, I guess, legacy systems in Australia are on-premise, and we do hear from schools that being in the cloud is something they would like to move towards. That is something that we offer with locally hosted services there with AWS. We also actually back up to Azure in Australia as well. So if there were a catastrophic outage at AWS, we roll back to Azure. You never need a plugin or a VPN. This is 100% web-based, all through a web-enabled device with a browser. Security, I can take a lot of that as read. I mean, a modern application like Veracross has all of these things just covered off, of course. In terms of the support, that's something that we hear about from schools as well. A few numbers here that we measured from the first half of the last year. I really like this one. A third of the time that you speak to someone on our team, they resolve your issue that instance the first time. That speaks to the tenure of our team. We've got our locally based team, which have been through a huge amount of training and upskilling. We've got our broader global team. We have office in the UK, on the east coast of the US, and also with staff on the west coast of the US, which means we have a follow the sun support model as well. And I think this also speaks to our knowledge management internally. So if someone gets asked a question by a school in the support team and they don't know the answer necessarily, they can easily go and get it and find it. Average satisfaction score, every time you fill out a support ticket, you get to provide feedback on what you think out of 10. And you also get to, if you do find that the answer is not sufficient enough, or if it's been a little bit slow coming to you, there's actually an escalate button that you can click as well if you need to escalate, and that will then send that to a manager to jump in and provide additional support. All right. Hopefully that was quick enough. I had about 5 minutes. I've probably got a touch over. I'm going to move it over to Jade, and she will now take you through a walk through the product. Over to you, Jade.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I'm just going to set up my screen share very quickly. We're going to jump into a lightning quick 10-minute walkthrough of Veracross. So Chris has covered off a couple of important points already, but what we're starting with here that you see on your screen are called our portals. So there are two key areas of Veracross, both our portals, and then we have our administrative engine of the platform called Axiom. So that's where our administrators live, not our teachers by design. We're going to come back to that in the second half. So Chris called out the concept of the one person, one record system, which is a real key strength of Veracross. So at the top of our portals here, we have what's called the portal picker. Now, it's pretty likely that in your school, you'll have people who wear multiple hats. So you could have teachers, for example, who are also parents, maybe even alumni, so on and so forth. So it's important to note that those individuals, everybody needs just a single login. So they can go very easily from their teacher perspective to looking at a parent perspective, and perhaps they may also be looking at bringing on a new child into the school in admissions. A single login is all they need. Now, as I briefly flash up a few of these different options on the screen, you'll notice that the look and feel of these portals is changing pretty dramatically. So I do want to call out the really solid customization functionality in the platform. It's entirely in your school's hands, the look, the feel, and the content of these platforms. So as much as we as the Veracross team are here to support you with that, you do not need to contact us to make any of these changes, and they can be immediate as well, which is really fantastic. So what Chris also briefly alluded to was just the concept of that one person, one record life cycle. So at each different stage of an individual's relationship with your college or your school, they're, of course, likely to have different roles. So we cover, as far as our portals go, all the way through from teachers, students, parents, admissions. We also really love the concept of the future parent portal. I know for many of our schools, in some cases, enrollments are taken really far in advance. So there's an opportunity there for families to interact with the school in that interim gap. Alumni, fundraising, also the concept of a board portal. So quite a few things there. But for the time we have this morning, I'm going to call out some core day-to-day functionality for a couple of very important groups, starting with our teachers. So you might have noticed I've got a couple of examples of teacher portals here just to call out how much you can customize it in terms of the friendliness for that change management piece with our teachers. We often find some schools start out quite small and simple, and then they may decide to move to something that looks a little bit more boldly branded like this. In any case, functionality-wise, marking the role, of course, is a pretty core one to look at here. So here's my classes for today. I'll pick Italian as my guinea pigs for now. And while we have quite a few options down the left, I want to call out attendance. And what we see here is our group of students. The location of these kids as well is actually wonderfully fed through from other parts of the platform, such as if we know that they're on an excursion, if perhaps they're at the nurse, if a parent has nominated they're going to be absent, that all feeds through to here. So Rebecca, I'll take as an example. I can also see she's got quite a few flags here. So you have the ability to put front and center for teachers really core information that they should know straight away when these children are in front of them. Speaking of, I suppose, that pastoral element, we also have lots of wonderful tools for schools to capture pastoral information and records about their students as needed. So we have the concept of both what we call comments and behaviours. Schools have full control over the types of categories that are recorded here. So just a couple of examples we've got here. Making note of NCCD adjustments, being helpful to teachers and peers, but then as far as perhaps more negative behaviours, if there's any missed attentions, any skipping of class, things like that as well. I will note as well, really important to note everything that's captured here on the front end in your portals, not just by teachers, but by any group, that feeds back through to Axiom, which can then be reported on, manipulated, and really leveraged as far as that decision making goes throughout your school. So let's have a quick look at a parent's day-to-day as well. So being able to see all of the information I want to know about my kids without even clicking, I can see straight away Beck's at history, Andy's off on an excursion. And I will call out this daily schedule concept, which as much as a timetable, of course, is accessible via the portals, this chronological view of a day is a wonderful way to see the full breadth of what's going on. So all the way through from bus routes, classes that are taking place, any work that may be due that day, through to after school activities as well. So coming back to the parent homepage, I will also call out that families have the ability to update their own information, communication preferences, medical information as well, all of which can be vetoed, I suppose, by your school's team on the back end. Now, again, this has been a super quick whip through of portals, but what I will call out as well, if I come to the board portal as an interesting example, when we look at Axiom, the back end, you're going to see these wonderful reports that can be built in Veracross. Any report that you build in Veracross can be published to your individual communities on the front end so that the right people have the right information up to date live. So a board example here could be the idea of having an admissions report, revenue and expense. All of this data here is live. So super quick example of a board portal. No more printing of massive board packs, no more, responding to requests for information. You can make that available in real time. Okay, moving right along to Axiom. There's a lot to take in this morning, so thanks for bearing with us. So what you see here again is the administrative engine of Veracross called Axiom. By design, once more, your teachers don't live in here, your administrators do, as well as any school leadership that you find relevant. But I do want to call out that it's all very much subject to role-based access controls. I'm going to step into our launch pad in the top left here, which shows the full breadth of all of the modules available inside Veracross. And that modular nature of the platform is a real strength as well, such that you may choose to start with a certain number of modules as your school takes Veracross on board. But then as things grow and develop, you can always add additional things on as well. Now, calling out to role-based access controls too, this looks, there's quite a lot of options here. But if I were to use this other tab as an example for someone in the admissions team, you can see that that's significantly simplified. So they will only see the data that they've been given permissions to and that is relevant to them. Taking a very quick look at our main page here, this concept of find is in many places. We have some wonderful pre-built reports that can then be modified to go ahead and adapt to exactly the information you want to surface. But I love to call out this where is student or teacher now functionality. So I'm actually going to show you a really quick little shortcut. So if I type in where is student, and as much as I could click on that, I'm just going to press tab and I'm going to look for where is Rebecca right now? Maybe I'm in reception. I've got mum or dad on the phone, and straight away I can see that Beck's in history in room 305. This will be a nice little springboard into showing you an individual profile. And while there is so much to call out in here, there's a couple of key things I want to highlight for you. So all of this information, that one record, one person system, lives in perpetuity. So where Rebecca was originally an applicant, she's now a live student, eventually she'll become an alumni. All of this information remains. So it certainly is an incredible resource to be able to refer back to. Related people, I think, is an incredible strength of Veracross, where we know that there can be some very complex individual relationships within schools. And we have, I think, if you look very briefly at this little drop down, really substantial number of different relationships that can be recorded against an individual. And all of these links that you see here that look like hyperlinks, that's exactly what they are. So you can very easily see that beautiful web of how different individuals are connected within the platform, all the way through to making immediate updates to things like legal custody, emergency pickup, receiving of invoices and school reports, just as the tip of the iceberg. Okay, now I'm going to finish by coming back to the main page, and I want to showcase our query builder, which is incredibly powerful. So find students is a pretty cool one here. When I open up this page, which is our query builder, you'll see immediately I can manipulate this however I like. I can change terminology with a few keyboard clicks. No need to request that with us. And I can also add in additional fields that I know will be really helpful. So once I've done that and run my query, all that information is there ready to go straight away. Now you can always go back and modify that query with design, or our lightning bolt here is a way that any query can always be exported to Excel, CSV, PDF. Can also be used to springboard into fabulous communications via Composer. But while SMS is front and center, let me call out, SMSs are entirely free, unlimited within Veracross, no additional costs, no limits, none whatsoever. So bearing in mind the time, let me pull up this tab over here where I will show you a little bit about our Composer tool. So once you've established your query, perhaps you want to be emailing families of a particular year level who are involved in a certain program. We have a wonderful drag and drop facility for our Composer templates, which mean that you can very easily generate similar emails. You can also add some wonderful different themes with a few clicks of a button, all of which are defined by your school, but with the support of the Veracross team. Also great to note that we have some fantastic analytics tools for those emails as well, so you can get some wonderful information about engagement with your audience. That has been a super, super quick lightning walkthrough of Veracross. So I will throw back to Chris and Joanna. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Thanks, Jade. That was great. A couple of questions here as well that I might just answer quickly. So there was a question about customizing the portals or configuring the portals, and if there's ability to preview that. Yes, of course. We have a sandbox where you're able to have a cut of your production environment that can be regenerated on a cadence weekly, for example. Any changes you may want to make, you can test out in the sandbox first. That was from Mark. And from Hayden, talking about our implementation approach. This question has a few more sub components to it, so we'd be happy to answer it offline in more detail, but just at a high level, our standard approach is to implement in a modular basis, and Joanna may talk a little bit more about that in just a few moments, of course, but yes, that is widely used as a standard approach because it is our preferred method. And we can take that offline, Hayden, if you like. And I can see a question's just come in, but I'm running out of time just a little bit. I'll answer that in a moment. Let me just share my screen again. and I want to make sure we get plenty of time with Joanna. So I'll just introduce King's Baptist Grammar quickly. In fact, why don't I let Joanna do that? So Joanna, I'll throw over to you. Perhaps you want to start with just a bit of an introduction about your school and your role at the school, and then I guess, yeah, an intro to how you got to where you are with Veracross, what prompted your team to conduct a systems audit in the first place, and maybe a brief overview of the goals behind the project.
Great. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me today. So a bit of background about us at King's Baptist Grammar School. We are based in South Australia. We are an independent school. We have 2 campuses, one located, and they're 2 different geographic locations. So one located in Windvale, which is our main campus, that is currently ELC to Year 12 and about 1,300 students. And then we have a new campus, which we recently opened up in the Adelaide Hills in Mount Barker. That campus is ELC to Year 4, but will grow to ELC to Year 12 by 2033. So we are a growing school with that second campus in mind. And essentially, because of our growth, we really started to have a review of our systems, because we were feeling some pain points with our current ones, mostly due to the fact that not only did we have functionality issues, but we just really felt like we weren't able to grow and scale with those systems as well. So last year, we undertook a SIS review, where essentially I met with a number of SIS providers, and we had a really clear scope and understanding of what we wanted in a SIS. So not only from a functionality perspective, but also in terms of the type of organisation that we wanted to partner with. And that was very much our mindset from the get-go. We didn't want to have a vendor-client relationship. We really wanted to choose a new SIS provider that would be willing to partner with us, listen to our needs, and work with us to achieve an outcome that would then scale with us for the future. So when it came to our SIS review, because we did have a very clear understanding of our scope, essentially what I did was I put together what I called our SIS scorecard document. And essentially, when I met with each SIS provider, I had my checklist of questions. Everyone was hit with the same ones, and essentially I was able to tick or cross off whether that SIS provider was able to meet our needs. And some of the key things that we were really looking for was, 1, a system that we could grow into, 2, a service provider that would have training and support built in within the subscription, that we wouldn't be hit with additional fees on an ongoing basis just to simply use the product. 3 was also very good integrations and the ability to integrate. And because we were looking for a system that we could grow into, we performed overall as a school a system audit to determine which systems we could basically remove and then consolidate into the one. So that was some of the key things that we were looking for. Our process with Veracross was very detailed. Obviously, they got past the first steps of the initial SIS scorecard and conversations, and then we actually had our account executive come and visit us for a couple of days here at our main Windvale campus. And that was a brilliant process and really quite detailed from our side as well, where basically beforehand I had met with all of our non-teaching staff leaders across the school and had a really clear understanding of their role, their responsibilities, their requirements, and spoke with them about areas that we could potentially streamline and utilise SIS for. Potentially remove out some spreadsheets and manual processes, and what could we really bring into SIS to streamline our communication and streamline our processes. So I had our individual meetings, and then in terms of resourcing from our perspective as well, I really put the role and responsibility onto those key leaders within our school to come prepared with questions to our 2 days with Veracross. So that way they had the responsibility of ensuring that we had asked the key and critical questions and that we got the responses that we needed to. But then that was also a really good opportunity for stakeholder engagement as well. They felt part of the process. They felt like that their needs were being met because we gave them the voice. So I guess just from a resourcing perspective, a little bit about my role. So my role at King's is project and systems manager. So sort of piggybacking off of the keynote earlier, I'm not part of the IT team. I report to our director of business, but I do work closely with our IT team. So I'm solely responsible for our Veracross implementation and working with the people to bring in our various stakeholders throughout our Veracross implementation. So very much my role is on the project management and understanding the school's operational needs, and then fitting that with the technology that we need. And the role of our IT manager is to support on the very technical side. So just to piggyback off of the conversation earlier this morning, that's where my role sits, between the school operations and between IT. I'm sort of smack in the middle there and liaise between the two, and then I'm the main project contact as well. So essentially we had quite a detailed conversation with Veracross throughout our whole sales process. We engaged our stakeholders quite a lot overall, and in the end we ended up having a whole team discussion with our leaders following our 2 days with Veracross, and we decided together that it was the best fit for our school. So that's how we have landed with choosing Veracross as our SIS.
Excellent. Thanks, Joanna. Let's just dig into a couple of points there. So sometimes we get the question from schools, should we do an RFP? Should we not do an RFP? So people might be interested to hear what you did. And sometimes people are also interested how many systems to assess, perhaps initially at a high level, and then how many systems to sort of shortlist for a final round, if you will. So did you want to chat to any of those sort of points?
Yeah, so I think what was interesting for us is I had worked in our school for almost a couple of years before we started this SIS review. So already I had quite a good understanding of our requirements. So we didn't do a formal RFP. I just had everything documented internally because I had that background knowledge, and I'd already worked across several teams operationally within the school as well. So we didn't go down the RFP path, but I guess you could almost equate my SIS scorecard, which had a very clear outline of our requirements, but that was more so of an internal document for us, where essentially if I was asked by our executive, I had our own data points in which SISs would actually meet our requirements, in addition to gut feel and I guess the sense of how well we would be looked after as well. So
sure.
That's, I guess, our data point. In terms of how many SISs we spoke with, honestly, I spoke with as many as possible. I really wanted to make sure we did our homework. But in terms of making it to the really detailed process of having a SIS provider come to our school, we actually only ended up having Veracross come. So we really took it quite seriously. We didn't want to waste anyone's time. We wanted to, I guess, essentially scope out and really figure out early on which ones would be the right fit. We landed on 2, but we only actually had Veracross come down and do a full scoping session because it became quite clear to us, because we knew our needs very early on, that Veracross would be the best fit for us. And we just really used those 2 days to probe and get into as much detail as possible, just to pull together the final bits and pieces.
Sure. Okay, great. Thanks, Joanna. And just in terms of why you felt Veracross was going to meet your needs, what was it about us, perhaps in just a little bit more detail, and probably more from a product fit? You sort of mentioned a little bit about the feel and the service and to be looked after, etc. I mean, feel free to elaborate on that as well, but perhaps the product fit for your school, why you felt we'd be able to meet that.
So some of our pain points that we really wanted to address when we were searching for a new SIS, one was quite straightforward, is we just wanted a really easy interface to extract our data. There's so much data within a SIS, and often we had to come across so many challenges just simply trying to cut, sort, filter out our data. So the query tool that Jade quickly looked through before was one of the key reasons why we chose Veracross. We also had, we currently have some pain points when it comes to our newsletter, and always ensuring that we have an accurate email list for those communications. So currently, essentially we've got our SIS, and then we use MailChimp at the moment to send out our newsletter, but it's a manual process, and we're constantly getting, as all schools would experience, parents update email addresses on an ongoing basis, and it really becomes quite painful to manage our mailing list within MailChimp. So the fact that Veracross has the Composer tool built in, we know that every single time we send out communications in Veracross, that it's going to the right people at the most current email address. So that was another tool that just really stood out to us and was a bit of a point of difference with Veracross as well. The other differentiator, again, which Jade happened to preview, was the portals. And having the portals is basically your one-stop shop for the school, from the parent point of view, but also from the teacher point of view, or faculty point of view, was really important for us. From the faculty point of view, it's something that our staff are already used to some extent. So we didn't want to take that away from them, and we just really wanted to look at how we could improve that. And that was something that Veracross could do through the portal, through the portal functionality. Likewise, the parent portal functionality would just streamline so much of our communication, and knowing that that would then also, some of those modules would then also integrate with our current Digistorm app, was a massive bonus as well. So when it comes to parent communication and having that completely streamlined between the app and the portal, that was just really a no-brainer for us. Some of the other pain points that we have within our school, which Veracross will help us address, is like our calendar system. So at the moment, that's just tracked externally through basically staff submitting a form for events that they want added to a calendar. And then our principal's PA will just put that into a big spreadsheet that's locked down for people to view. Then there's also the double up on the parent side, where currently we manually add all of our school events into our Digistorm app interface for parents to view on the app. But the fact that now we can consolidate those two processes and just simply add our calendar into Veracross with the ability to sort and filter who sees what, again, that's just streamlining so many of these manual processes for us. So that's just a couple of reasons why. And actually one more that I did miss, which is only really critical, I guess, it's very critical at the start during implementation, but it will be critical on an ongoing basis for us, is Veracross's data integrity tool. So that tool is really there to help us ensure that our data is always clean and accurate, and there's no little curly little scenarios that are wrong with our data. So I can talk a little bit about that in terms of our implementation, but the fact that we have a page to go to in Veracross's Axiom that will show us if there's any errors with our data and tell us what the error is and enable us to clean that up. That was also another positive for choosing Veracross as well.
Yeah, nice. Thank you. And yeah, you've hit a couple of key points that I might just follow up on a little bit. So with the app, you're right. The context that you have there are literally hundreds, in fact, close to 1,000 schools in Australia using the Digistorm app. The Digistorm app is the Veracross app. So from the parent experience, there's actually no change. You don't have to move your parents off to a different app. That is a bespoke premium app experience where the app is listed as belonging to your school. The name of your school is what the app is. So I wouldn't go and download the Digistorm app or the Veracross app. I go to the App Store and download the King's Baptist app. The developer of the app also appears as King's Baptist, which means that I think that provides a really premium experience, and we've had really good feedback around that. And the data integrity tool is a nice one to call out as well. That sort of leads us into the next part of the presentation. I realise we've run out of time ever so slightly, because we do have 10 minutes set aside for Q&A here as well. But we should just talk a little bit about the implementation and the migration, because that's often a question we get. And I mean, I know my bias, but certainly when we go out and show schools Veracross, we don't tend to hear this doesn't look any good. We sort of get a lot of excitement. We do certainly get plenty of questions, which kind of follow on from the first presentation of, how hard is this going to be, and how are we going to do it, and how much help we're going to get, and what does all of that look like? There are a number of ways I mentioned earlier in the presentation about how Veracross supports schools, and the data integrity tool is certainly one. So you can dedupe organizations and addresses and people within the platform So obviously, the cleaner you can get your data in, the better. But if you do bring in some duplicates, we have the software there to help dedupe those within the platform. That's what Joanna was referring to there. But Joanna, let me just throw it back to you. I guess in terms of the experience you've had with Veracross so far, where you're up to with your implementation, the support you've had, if you have had a little bit of a hurdle, or you've got stuck at some point, how have we helped you with that?
So in terms of our implementation, we are rolling out module by module, which has worked really nicely for us. So where we're at the moment is we're almost about to close off our core implementation, which is the first module of your Veracross implementation. And pretty much we've uploaded most of our core data. We've worked through our data validation, and we can work to closing that off really soon. Rolling over, we also started the implementation of our academics and student life module, where we're setting up our academic hierarchy, and we'll start soon importing our academic data into Veracross as well. And then coming up next term, we will be starting our admissions implementation. And then following that, we will have our finance implementation. So we are looking to go live with Veracross as our source of truth for our core data, which will map to our current LMS around August, September this year. Likewise, academics will be finished by around then, but we might not hit the go live button. So there's sort of like a Veracross completion of the module, and then when you determine to go live for your school, which every school will be different. And then admissions will be finished by around September, which is a bit of a lighter touch for us because we're keeping our third-party enrolments software, which Veracross is integrating with, which is fantastic for us. And then finance will be fully implemented by the end of this year, ready for us to start using January 1 next year. So we are pretty much implementing all of our modules this year, and if they're not live this year, they will be live ready for January next year.
And just on that point, Joanna, as well, I think for context, if I recall correctly, you guys might have signed off right before Christmas, sort of maybe that last week before Christmas.
Yep.
So what that effectively looks like is 1 full year is deprecating the old system and fully live with Veracross. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is great, really. I think 12 months and you're obviously doing a fairly broad scope. It's not like you've just got a smaller cut down package of it or something like that. So yeah, 12 months is the rule of thumb we would generally say to schools. It certainly can go slower than that if you feel like it needs to, or depending on your context, can go quicker as well. And we have had schools go more quickly than that. But yeah, that is always a conversation we have with schools depending on their context.
Yeah. And
all right. Also, go on.
Just if I add one thing, what I have found with our implementation is the data integrity tool has been great. And if anything, I'd recommend to schools to allow a bit of extra time to implement core, because you really want to get your data right. You have to get that core data right before you can move ahead and move along. So we've ended up spending a bit more time on our core data. So that's probably been our only hurdle, I guess, in our implementation so far, is just really ensuring that we have the extra time spent there to then make the implementation of the rest of our modules really smooth and to give us that confidence.
Sure. All right. Excellent. Well, thank you. Thanks for sharing your story there. It's greatly appreciated from the Veracross team, and I'm sure greatly appreciated from the audience as well. We've got over 100 people on the call, which is excellent. So many people have come along to learn a little bit more. We do have 10 minutes set aside to take some Q&A. So I want to make sure that we get the chance to answer any questions from the floor. We've had a few come in typed, which has been great, and we've all got back to all of those, I think, now. But are there any questions that we'd like to take from the floor?
Well, nobody likes dead air, so I'll start asking some, Chris, whilst others type some questions there. I notice you've been answering them as you've been going. So if anyone on the call would also like to look at the answered questions, you might see some answers to things that you're about to ask. I've got a question around the rollover from a student being current and into alumni. what information is retained and what information is disposed of when they go from current to alumni? And is that like user controllable?
Yes, it is. So there's a default set of information that rolls over. By default, we probably tend to err on the side of holding more information than less, and I guess also holding what we believe is the relevant information by default. So when you move somebody over to a member of the alumni, we probably don't need to know how they went on their year 8
Yeah, correct.
second term test kind of things. That would be too much. But obviously, we really want to know demographic data. So absolutely, that is retained. Anything that you want to wipe away, a system administrator has the ability to batch delete. If a mistake is made, of course, there's the ability to roll that back with support of the Veracross team. But if there's information that you feel like, oh, actually, we'd really like to keep as little as possible about the alumni for whatever reason, we want to remove some of the information, you certainly can.
Okay, so I'm not seeing any questions popping up there. So the 113 people on the call, please put your questions in now. We've only got them for a few more minutes. So my question will continue then around retention and disposal. Many schools have been struggling with the student information system that they've got to adhere to a retention and disposal schedule. Quite often we're sort of looking at the Australian Archivists schedule. And if we want to implement that, then we need to sort of be able to have it programmatically happen in some fashion. Trouble is, of course, schools are complex places, so you need to retain information on Indigenous students for a very long time. And if there's any child safety matters that are pending, that information needs to be retained as well. So you've got rules that you're going to try and adhere to in terms of the disposal of information, but then you've got those special cases that you need to be able to flag. Just your comments on that.
Yeah, sure. I guess, first of all, a really important thing to know at a conceptual level is that Veracross will always support schools with any compliance related matters. And every time we sign a new school in a new state, we obviously have new state government or state Department of Education compliance requirements there, state-based reports. So for each of the first schools that came on in each state, those compliance reports, we just ask them, hey, give us a list of all of the reports you need to make. We'll put them in the contract that we're going to deliver those for you. All of the reports that are done for, and I saw a question previously about census and attendance. I think Jade's answered it. Thanks, Jade. But all of those types of reports are actually just built in the UI. So configuring attendance codes and making sure that the output of the information is correct. One of the examples we often give when we're doing a demonstration is in one, forgive me, I don't know exactly which one it is, whether it's a stats one or the census one or whichever, but one of them I think has Indigenous status reported as a number. And 9, I think, is one of the answers. And then the other one has Indigenous status reported as Y or N. So it doesn't say 9 against Indigenous status against a student, but the output of that data can be shown as what we call an alternate display field. So the ability to create those reports is actually somewhat of a lighter lift for us, to be fair. All of those reports have been spun up, and we will continue to work with schools and with the various organisations in the various jurisdictions to make sure that the reporting is up to date and correct. In terms of wiping away the data and retaining the data, that's something that we're across as well. So data isn't deleted sort of, I don't know, just willy-nilly. It is in there and you can wipe it away when you need, and you've got it there to keep for as long as you need to as well. But certainly something we'd be happy to dig into in more detail. I've seen a couple of questions come in. I'll certainly attempt to get through a few of them, but what I might do just while we're doing that is we do have a little prize for people to win for coming along today. So we do appreciate the people that have given up their time this morning. So if you want to take a quick screenshot of that, I'll leave that there for another 10 seconds or so. So quickly grab your phone out. And then I guess just while you're doing that, the other thing would be that if this has been of interest today, often what we do is we set up an initial 1 hour call where we would sort of learn a little bit more about your school, explain a little bit more about our service and how we work, go through the product in just a little bit more detail than the sort of rapid fire 10 minutes, which was all we had time for today. And of course, answer any specific questions to your school context. We're really interested in this, or we're not interested in that, so don't show us, or whatever it might be. we'd love to set up a tailored 1 hour session with you. So if
Yeah,
you would like to set
yes,
that
sorry,
up, you can do that there.
I was going to say, you've got 4 minutes now, and you've actually got 4 questions. So
Brilliant.
off you go.
All right, so a couple of questions about the timetable. So we have a list-based integration built for Edvel or Timetabler, and what we would suggest is that you continue as is with Edvel or Timetabler. There is a timetabling solution within Veracross, but candidly, it's somewhat more designed for a simpler sort of primary school or a smaller high school that might have a simple block schedule, for example. For a larger or even medium to larger high school, we'd suggest continuing with Edvel or Timetabler. With that list-based integration, I said I worked in schools. One of the roles I had when I was in schools was Timetabler. And I use Timetabler, timetabling solutions. Do the timetable there, click the sync button, and it goes over into Veracross. It can, is displayed both in that grid view that we're all sort of familiar with, but also in a linear sequential view, a daily schedule view. And in terms of any changes that would be made, yes, if you're using the daily org file with Edvel, for example, you can sync that across as well, and those changes are reflected within Veracross. But yes, happy to get into that in more detail when the time is right. Dean, the top 2 reasons to select Veracross over others in the market. That's a really good question. I like that one. Thank you, Dean. I think I only get 2. Give me 5 seconds to think of the best 2.
I can tell you.
Okay, go for it, Joanna. Yes, please do.
Top 2 reasons why we selected Veracross was 1, the really easy ability to extract our data through the query tool. Number 2 is Veracross is extremely robust in terms of functionality. So it can likely do what you need it to do. However, if you do need to connect to another tool or another app, the fact that it's got the open API and you can integrate the other third-party app quite easily, seamlessly, with support from the Veracross team, that was a no-brainer for us.
Yeah, excellent. Thanks, Joanna. I think my answer would be, and again, if I sort of think back to my school time and some of the experiences that I had there with other providers, the configurability that we give schools, the service we give schools, the ability to tailor the platform to work how you want it to work without having to contact us and without having to pay us. Of course, we will support you if you need it, and you can book a support call with us for us to help you, build out one of the portals, for example. But the power to do that is all within the UI. You do not have to contact us. So that would certainly be one. And I think the fact that we have solutions for all departments. I mean, there were some schools that I helped come on board with Veracross last year, and part of the, we always ask why. We want to hear in a school's words why they've chosen us, and a couple of them said if we didn't choose you guys, we would have had to go and get 3 other systems. So I think the fact that you can have the native finance in our platform, the native admissions, if you so choose to. Veracross is flexible though, so like Joanna, if you prefer to keep your third-party solution because you've just put it in or it's well embedded, that's fine as well. And also the community management, the alumni, the comms, etc. They'd be my 2 reasons. Thanks for the question, Dean. Matthew is next. New Zealand government reporting. That is something I'd be happy to take offline, but yes, we're continuing work with that. Similarly, we've made contractual commitments to the schools there that we've signed to have that available for schools, and we're continuing to work through that. I'm just keeping an eye on the time because I don't have much more time for your question, Matthew, I'm afraid, but I'd certainly be happy to chat to you about that. And actually, that may be the final question. So
that probably is. Yeah, sorry, Chris, I'll let you finish up.
Yeah, sure. So thank you, Alan. There's one here from Roland. Yeah, so in terms of the migration, the way that works, and Joanna may have a quick comment on this, but we do have tasks that Veracross complete, tasks that the school completes. So we don't know your data. You need to be have some responsibility over that. Of course, we help you with that. Of course, we assist. The person who leads our implementations is Scott LeBrun, who's ex-Synergetic. He spent 11 years there. Prior to that, he spent 16 years as a head of IT at an independent school in Melbourne. So a really knowledgeable person to give some sort of general advice about getting data out of that system. We also have people from other school information systems that have worked in implementation teams there as well. So we're able to help you with that, and we have those tools in the platform as well. Joanna, did you want to add anything on that specific question about migration and reports?
Yeah, sure. So in terms of our data migration, and guess it comes back to our resourcing too. We're working with one of the Veracross partners, AccuCom, to support us with our data migration. So between, I guess, our resourcing, our knowledge of our data, the input from Scott, who's our implementation manager, and then also the technical knowledge from AccuCom, that process has been really quite smooth and seamless for us to get our data over from our current SIS over to Veracross.
Lovely. That's where we're going to have to leave it, folks. Thank you very much to Veracross, Chris, Joanna, and Jade for your presentation. Really appreciate your time. These slides, they'll be available, Chris, afterwards.
Absolutely. Yeah, happy to make them available.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thanks very much for your time.
Thank you. Thanks for having us. Have a great day, everybody.